They'll never admit this out loud, not to their friends, not even to themselves. But there's one vibe, just one, that flips a switch inside her mind. A shift so silent, so primal, that she won't even know why she's leaning in. Why she suddenly sees you differently. Why she lowers her voice when she speaks to you. You don't need a better body. You don't need more money. You don't need clever lines. You need to master the one signal that high-value men give off without effort. It's not charm. It's not aggression. It's not even confidence, not the way people sell it to you. It's older than language. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to embody it. There's a reason she feels the shift when you stop talking. Not when you stop texting her. Not when you play games or act aloof. That's not silence. That's performance. The real shift happens when you stop explaining yourself. When your voice becomes still, not out of fear, not out of withdrawal, but because you've rooted yourself so deep that nothing she says, nothing she does, can knock you off center. And she feels it. She always feels it. You could be sitting across from her at dinner. She's talking about her day. She's probing you with little tests. She wants to see if she can find a crack. Will you chase her validation? Will you rush to fill the silence? Will you prove your worth with clever jokes or praise or compliments? Or will you just breathe? Will you sit back with that unbearable stillness that says, I am enough? Not loudly, not with words, but with presence, because women can smell it. Not the surface energy, the real vibration underneath your skin. She can sense when your silence comes from fear, and when it comes from groundedness, when it comes from shame, and when it comes from knowing. And here's the secret. Nobody tells you the highest value vibe a man can give off is containment. You contain yourself. You do not leak. You do not overshare. You do not beg to be understood. You let her emotional storms pass through without needing to react. You feel the chaos, but you stay unmoved. Not because you're numb, but because your roots are deeper than her waves. And in that moment, without knowing why, she changes. She feels smaller, but safe. Her voice drops half an octave. She looks at you a second longer. She questions everything she thought about you, and suddenly, her attraction to you becomes uncomfortable. Because now you are the mirror and she sees herself in the reflection, and she can't control what she sees. That is the beginning of high-value presence, not money, not mystery, but the absence of emotional need. You are not performing. You are not reacting. You are not hungry for her approval. And that is terrifying, because most men are starving. Starving for attention, starving for affirmation, starving for a little hit of feminine approval to feel okay about themselves. But not you. Not anymore. Now you've remembered something older than desire, something colder than charm. You've remembered how to sit inside yourself like a throne, how to move through the world like a mountain, not a dancer. And suddenly she's disoriented, because nothing she does pulls you off center. You're not acting mysterious. You are mystery. You're not using silence as a trick. Your silence is the presence. Your stillness is not a strategy. It's your nature, uncovered. And she begins to test harder. She'll tease. She'll provoke. She'll flirt and vanish. She'll show skin and then pull it back. But you don't chase, because you're not there to win her. You're there to be you. You let her rise and fall like the tide. You watch the game with a soft gaze, like a wolf that's already eaten. She feels it in the way your eyes don't grab, in the way your body doesn't fidget, in the way you speak, if you speak at all, as if there's no need to finish the sentence. Because when a man holds himself in full containment, women don't see a man. They see a symbol of something dangerous, something holy, something beyond them. They try to own it, flirt with it, capture it, but they can't, because it doesn't move toward them. It doesn't kneel, it doesn't soften when they demand softness. And that's what pulls them deeper. Not because you're being difficult, not because you're trying to impress, but because you've stopped collapsing. You've stopped explaining. You've stopped proving. You've stopped leaking your power for free. You've become a man who doesn't fill space. He is the space. The room shifts when you enter. Not because you're loud, but because you're not afraid to be silent. Women notice that instantly. They notice it before they even speak to you, before you say a word, before you even glance in their direction. They feel it in the way you stand, in the way your shoulders are not held like armor but like stone, in the way you don't scan the room for validation. You're not watching anyone. You're not waiting for an opening. You're not strategizing your next move. You are simply there, anchored, silent, alive. And that makes them uneasy in the most addictive way, because most women are surrounded by noise. Men who talk too much, men who try too hard, men who sell themselves like products, polish themselves like brands, and collapse the moment they're not seen. So when a man walks in who needs nothing, the entire structure of her world tilts. She doesn't understand why she's drawn in. She just is. Her biology doesn't care about your resume. Her instincts don't care about your smile. What pulls her is the one thing she can't fake, can't chase, can't explain your lack of emotional hunger. You're not posturing. You're not asking the world to call you a man. You are one. Not because you dominate, but because you no longer need to react. And this is the real reason silence is power. Not because it's mysterious, but because it's unfakeable. You can't pretend not to need her attention. You either do, or you don't. And if you still do, you'll talk too much. You'll try too hard. You'll try to be interesting or funny or charming, and she'll feel it. Not in your words, but in the small fractures in your stillness, in the way your energy leans out toward her, just a little too far. But when your silence is real, when it's not a tactic, but a byproduct of presence, she won't know what to do with it. She'll lean in. She'll play with her hair. She'll laugh louder than she needs to. She'll ask questions and answer them herself. She'll fill the space you've left open. And you just breathe. Not because you're distant, but because you're complete. And here's the brutal part, the part most guys never want to accept. The second you need something from her, it's over. The second your silence becomes a waiting room for her to validate, admire, or chase you, you've already lost. Because now you're performing again. Now you're manipulating. Now you've abandoned the throne, and women can sense the second you fall from it. They don't want a king who asks for permission to rule. They want to feel your silence like heat from a fire. They want to feel safe inside your groundedness and also tested by it. Because your containment exposes everything they're not. When you stop trying to be impressive, you become undeniable. When you stop trying to be liked, you become unforgettable. Because the truth is, women don't chase the man who begs to be seen. They chase the man they can't quite read. Not because he's hiding, but because he's whole. You don't ask her to see your worth. You radiate it. You don't show it off. You sit in it. You don't tell her who you are. You let her feel it and deal with the ache that she might never fully reach you. And when that happens, her body reacts. Her heart reacts. Her voice, her pace, her resistance, all begin to shift. She feels like a girl again. Not because you dominate her, but because you don't bend for her. And in that moment, you've become the mountain she didn't know she was searching for. The one she can cry in front of, scream at, fall against, and who still doesn't move. Because you're not here to be chased. You're here to be still. That's the vibe that makes her instantly see your value. Not flashy, not loud, but so rare, it breaks her rhythm. She'll either rise to meet you or she'll walk away and never forget the way your silence made her feel. You see, most men are too terrified to be silent. They can't hold it for more than a few seconds without trying to fill it. A joke, a compliment, a question. Something to keep her interest alive. Something to signal, I'm still valuable, right? But you're not most men. You don't need to perform value because your existence is the value. Your presence is the offer. And that's what breaks her. Not with cruelty, not with games, but with depth she wasn't ready for. She was expecting another show, another man ready to dance for approval, but you didn't show up with tricks. You showed up with truth. And the truth is stillness. Stillness that doesn't flinch when she challenges you. that doesn't lean forward when she pulls back, that doesn't shift when she's cold, and doesn't chase when she's warm. You move only when you mean to. You speak only when you must. You respond only when something inside you feels stirred, not provoked. And this drives her mad. Not because it's cruel, but because it's rare. Because most men are begging. Begging to be picked. Begging to be enough. Begging to be loved just for existing. Because deep down, they don't even love themselves. And women feel it in their bones. They don't need to hear it. It's in your posture, your breath, your energy. But when you sit across from her with that eerie calm, that calm that doesn't ask to be rescued, that calm that isn't trying to win her, she feels it in her gut. She might smile and flirt and play like it's just another night, but something in her body knows she's not in control anymore. She's not leading the dance. She's being pulled into your frame without a word. That's the kind of energy that makes a woman obsessed. Not because you're being a bad boy, not because you're distant, but because you are emotionally self-fed, internally sourced, contained. It's the opposite of neediness. It's not I don't care. It's I care on my terms. And that terrifies her in a way she craves, because she's used to being the center of gravity. But now you are the gravity. Her beauty doesn't bend you. Her attitude doesn't shake you. Her attention doesn't elevate you. You were already full before she arrived, and you'll still be full if she leaves. That's the vibe. That's what makes a woman see you, really see you as high value. Not the car, not the career, not the six-pack or the smooth game. Just this a man who doesn't trade silence for attention. A man who doesn't give away presents for a smile. A man who is unshakable. Not by force, but by truth. Because if you're still trying to be liked, you haven't built anything real. And she can feel it. She knows when you're performing. She knows when the mask slips. She knows when your stillness is just a pause between tactics. But if your stillness is who you are, then she's not just drawn to you. She's submitted to the energy. She feels like she's home and on fire at the same time. Safe and lost. Small and fully seen. And you didn't do a thing. You just were. That's the secret. A high-value man doesn't convince. He reveals, not with words, not with charm, not with proof, but with silence that speaks louder than any confession. Because when you truly arrive in your own presence, when you no longer flinch at disapproval, rejection, or confusion, you become a riddle her body tries to solve. A signal her instincts chase, even when her mind resists. And that's when you stop being an option and start being an experience. She doesn't want to figure you out. She wants to feel you, sit near you, watch you, wait for something to crack, only to realize it won't. And that's when you know the vibe is working. Because now you're not trying to be high value. You are the value. And that's when everything shifts without a single word. She starts showing up differently, softer, more uncertain. Not because you asked for it, not because you demanded it, but because your silence changed the temperature in the room. It made her feel something she couldn't control. She can't explain why your quiet eyes pull her in more than the loudest man in the room. She can't explain why your stillness makes her skin feel warmer, her voice more delicate, her barriers suddenly ridiculous. And she won't tell her friends. She'll say, "There's just something about him." She won't be able to name it, but you will. You'll know that it's not a tactic. It's not game. It's not pretending to be high status. It's because you've built a home inside your chest that doesn't need to be decorated for guests. You've stopped asking to be seen. You've stopped needing to be understood. And in that void, something else grows. A presence she can feel in her bones. And that presence doesn't chase. It doesn't beg. It doesn't adapt to her moods. It simply remains unbending, unimpressed, unattached. Not because you don't care, but because you care more about yourself. Because you've stopped measuring your masculinity by her reactions. Because you no longer need to explain your soul to be accepted. Because you finally see what most men will never see. That the more you reach, the more you lose. That the more you explain, the less you're felt. That the moment you try to be enough, you aren't. And she feels that that lack of trying, that fullness, that gravity. It doesn't come from faking detachment. It doesn't come from punishing women with silence. It comes from no longer trying to use women to soothe the hole in your gut. That hole isn't hers to fill. And once you know that really know it, you stop leaking need. And you become untouchable. Not emotionally distant. Not cold. But unreachable in the best possible way. She can touch you, but she can't move you. She can tempt you, but she can't shake you. She can offer her beauty, her body, her warmth, but none of it changes how you feel about yourself. That's what makes her want to give you more. Not because you asked, but because she finally met a man she can't control. And that scares her. Because you are no longer hers to manipulate. You are not a story she can rewrite. You are not an identity she can bend to fit her fantasy. You are a man fully formed, utterly still, deeply rooted. And that's silence. That's the crown. It's not the words you say. It's the things you don't need to say. It's the moments you let pass without commentary. It's the truths you know that don't require validation. And when you live there, when your vibe becomes that stillness, women notice. Not all women. Only the ones worth your attention. Because most women are too drunk on attention to feel depth. They want chaos. They want noise. They want something to fix or something to break. But the women who matter, those who are ready, who are truly feminine at their core, they don't just want a man, they want a place to rest. And a man who can hold silence not as a strategy, but as a way of being is the only place she'll ever feel safe enough to fall. And if she can't fall into you, she'll chase you. And if she won't chase, she'll disappear, but either way, you don't move. Because your value doesn't rise when she notices. And it doesn't fall when she leaves. You're not giving her a show. You're giving her the rarest thing a man can give, your unbroken self.